The 8-foot alien queen laughed at the idea of breeding with a human until she got pregnant. The howling wind carried stinging particles of ice across the alien landscape as Commander Will Watson fought with the manual controls of his rapidly descending shuttle. The vessel's hull groaned under the strain of atmospheric entry, its systems failing one by one as the strange interference from this unexplored world played havoc with the electronics. "Come on, you piece of shit," he growled, muscles straining against the control yoke. "Just a little longer." The ground rushed up to meet him, a blanket of white broken only by the dark shapes of alien vegetation. The shuttle's remaining engine sputtered and died just as he managed to level out, leaving him in an eerie silence, broken only by the whistle of wind through the damaged hull. Impact. The crash threw him against his restraints hard enough to knock the wind from his lungs. When the world stopped spinning, Will found himself hanging upside down, blood trickling from a cut above his eye. The cockpit window had cracked, but somehow held together, offering a pristine view of the snow-covered ground mere inches from his face. "Well," he muttered, releasing his harness and dropping to what used to be the ceiling. "That could have gone better." A quick inventory revealed that most of his emergency supplies had survived, including his powered armor. The black combat suit, a marvel of human engineering, would keep him alive in this hostile environment, at least for a while. Will suited up, leaving the helmet off for now to conserve power, and emerged into the alien winter. The snow came up to his knees, and the wind cut through his blonde hair like frozen razor blades. His tactical display showed the temperature at minus 40 degrees Celsius. "Mayday, Mayday," he broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Commander Watson of the ESS Hyperion. Does anyone copy?" Static was his only answer. Something moved in his peripheral vision, a flash of orange against the white landscape. Will spun on hand, instinctively reaching for his pulse rifle, but saw nothing except swaying alien trees. He needed shelter and resources. The shuttle's power cells were fried, and the backup wouldn't last more than a few days in these conditions. According to his scanners, there was a large geological formation about 2 kilometers to the north that might offer protection from the elements. As he trudged through the snow, Will couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. His combat training kept his senses alert, even as his mind wandered to how he'd ended up in this mess. The Hyperion had been mapping this sector when they detected an unusual energy signature. Standard procedure would have been to mark it for later investigation. But humanity's expansion into the galaxy had been marked by an almost reckless drive to push further, faster. A crack of breaking ice behind him made Will whirl around, rifle raised. This time, he wasn't imagining things. Standing before him was the most striking alien he'd ever encountered. She towered over him, easily 8 feet tall, with skin the color of a sunset and hair like flowing copper. Her armor, if it could be called that, seemed to be made of overlapping orange scales that left little to the imagination while somehow maintaining an air of martial dignity. She held a weapon that looked like a cross between a spear and a plasma rifle, pointed directly at his chest. "Well, hello there," Will said, keeping his own weapon steady but not directly aimed at her. "I don't suppose you'd be interested in a friendly chat?" The alien's eyes, golden and cat-like, narrowed. When she spoke, her voice was deep and melodious, and to his surprise, his universal translator handled it perfectly. "You are either very brave or very foolish to enter the sovereign territory of the Solarian Empire, human. Would you believe I'm just lost?" He flashed his most charming smile. "Commander Will Watson, at your service. And you are?" "I am Queen Auralia of the Solarian Empire, and you," she paused, those fascinating eyes scanning him from head to toe, "are my prisoner." Will kept his easy smile in place, though his mind raced through tactical options. "Your Majesty, I'm flattered by the attention, but I typically prefer dinner before being taken prisoner." A sound escaped her that might have been a laugh. "You jest in the face of capture? Typical human bravado." "Not bravado, just good manners. Besides, you haven't captured me yet." His armor's systems were already analyzing her weapon, calculating threat levels. "Though I admit the company's better than I expected when I crashed here." Aurelia's weapon didn't waver, but something like amusement flickered across her features. "You think to charm your way out of this situation? I've heard tales of human males and their proclivities. Did you expect to find some submissive alien female to rescue you?" "Actually, I was hoping to find shelter before I freeze my ass off. The company of a beautiful alien queen is just a bonus." He gestured at the strengthening storm. "Speaking of which, this weather's getting worse. Maybe we could continue this discussion somewhere warmer?" You dare to proposition me? Her voice carried equal parts outrage and fascination. Wouldn't dream of it, Your Majesty. Just suggesting we both might be more comfortable having this standoff indoors. A particularly fierce gust of wind whipped snow between them, and Will noticed her slight shiver despite her apparent resistance to the cold. The storm was getting dangerous, even by his enhanced armor standards. Your suggestion has merit, she finally conceded. My outpost is nearby. You will accompany me as my prisoner. Lead the way, though I should warn you, I'm not great at following orders. As they trudged through the deepening snow, Will kept a careful distance, noting how she moved with predatory grace despite her size. His suit sensors indicated she was generating significant body heat, far more than a human would. I must admit, she said after several minutes of walking, you are not what I expected from the reports of human males. Oh, and what did you expect? Smaller, weaker, more primitive. She cast him a sidelong glance. The data suggested your species would be barely worth conquering, Will chuckled. Sounds like you need better intelligence sources. Humanity's full of surprises. So I'm beginning to see. They reached what appeared to be a solid rock face, but at her touch, a hidden door slid open. Though I find it hard to believe your kind could ever truly challenge the Solarian Empire, the very idea of breeding with a human male is laughable. Funny you should mention that. Will started, but was cut off by a deafening explosion from above. The mountain shook, and chunks of ice and rock began raining down. Without thinking, Will tackled Aurelia through the doorway as the entrance collapsed behind them, sealing them inside. They landed in an undignified heap, his armored form pressed against her considerably taller frame. For a moment, they just stared at each other in the emergency lighting that had automatically activated. Well, Will said, still not moving. Looks like we'll have plenty of time to discuss interspecies relations. The emergency lighting cast an ethereal glow through the outpost corridors, painting everything in shades of amber that complemented Queen Aurelia's exotic features. Will found himself studying her as she paced the command center, her impressive height forcing her to duck occasionally under lower sections of the ceiling. The communications array is damaged, she announced, frustration evident in her melodious voice. We're cut off from the outside. Will leaned against a console, deliberately casual. Could be worse. At least we have life support and climate control. He gestured to his armor's readouts. Environmental systems are stable, and I'm picking up enough stored power to last weeks. Aurelia turned to face him, her golden eyes gleaming in the dim light. You seem remarkably unconcerned for someone trapped with a potentially hostile alien queen. Potentially hostile. That's an improvement from earlier. He grinned. Besides, I've been in worse situations, though usually with less interesting company. She made that sound again. Not quite a laugh, but close. You humans and your persistent attempts at charm. Is it working? Don't be absurd. But there was something in her tone that suggested otherwise. She moved closer, towering over him. Though I must admit, you're intriguing. Most species cower before the Solarian Empire. Will straightened up, closing some of the distance between them. Maybe they never took the time to get to know you. And you wish to get to know me? Her voice dropped lower, taking on a dangerous edge. Well, we are stuck here together. Might as well make the best of it. He gestured to his armor. This suit's got some interesting scanning capabilities. Want to know what it tells me about Solarian physiology? Her eyes narrowed. You dare to scan me. Standard protocol. For instance, I know your core temperature runs about 15 degrees hotter than mine. Your hearts actually, beat in a fascinating rhythm. And your pheromone levels spike whenever you get close to me. Aurelia's orange skin flushed a deeper shade. You're very presumptuous for a prisoner. Am I still a prisoner? Seems more like we're reluctant roommates at this point. She closed the distance between them further until she was looking down at him from mere inches away. Perhaps I should remind you of your position. My position is pretty good from where I'm standing. His eyes met hers without flinching. Though I'm open to suggestions for improvement, a low growl escaped her throat, not entirely threatening. You play a dangerous game, human. Will, he corrected, and I'm not playing. Something shifted in the air between them, an electric tension that had nothing to do with the outpost systems. Aurelia's hand moved to his face, her fingers surprisingly gentle as they traced the cut above his eye from the crash. Your species is so fragile, she murmured. So brief-lived compared to mine. Yet you show no fear. Should I be afraid? Yes, but she didn't move away. This is madness. The very idea of interaction between our species. Will reached up, his armored hand carefully brushing a strand of copper-colored hair from her face. Sometimes madness makes perfect sense. The kiss, when it came, was like touching a live wire. Her skin burned against his, alien yet impossibly alluring. Time seemed to lose meaning as they explored this new territory, breaking barriers that should have been insurmountable. Later, much later, they lay together in what passed for a rest chamber, their bodies cooling in the artificial atmosphere. Will traced patterns on her orange skin, marveling at how it seemed to shimmer under his touch. Still think the idea of breeding with a human male is laughable? He asked, unable to keep the smugness from his voice. Aurelia propped herself up on an elbow, looking down at him with an expression that mixed amusement and something deeper. You may have altered my perspective on certain matters. Happy to help expand your horizons. She rolled her eyes, a surprisingly human gesture. Your ego is remarkable. Part of my charm. This changes nothing, she said, but her tone lacked conviction. When we're rescued, if we're rescued, this will remain our secret. She paused, considering. Though perhaps we should conduct further cultural exchange while we wait. Will grinned. For science, of course. For science, she agreed, then grew serious. Though there are things you should understand about my species, about our compatibility. Before she could continue, a deep rumble shook the outpost. Warning lights flashed as systems began reporting multiple failures. That's not good, Orwen, Will said, reaching for his armor. Aurelia was already moving, her warrior's instincts taking over. The explosion must have destabilized the mountain. We need to. Another shockwave hit, stronger than the first. Equipment crashed to the floor as the very walls seemed to groan under immense pressure. Time to go, Will announced, securing his armor. Please tell me this place has an emergency exit? There's a maintenance shaft that leads to the surface, but the ceiling chose that moment to start collapsing. The maintenance shaft proved to be a tight squeeze, particularly for Aurelia's towering frame. Will led the way, his armor's lights illuminating the narrow passage as they climbed upward through the mountain's interior. Your Majesty, he called back. Not that I'm complaining about the view, but you've been unusually quiet. Focus on climbing, human, she responded, but her voice lacked its usual imperial authority. Instead, she sounded distracted. The shaft terminated in a heavy hatch. Will braced himself against the walls and pushed, servos in his armor whining with effort until the seal broke with a hiss of pressurized air. A blast of frigid wind and snow greeted them as they emerged onto the mountainside. The storm had intensified, turning the landscape into a white blur. Will's tactical display showed temperatures had dropped another 10 degrees, but something else caught his attention. Aurelia was shivering violently. This isn't right, she muttered, wrapping her arms around herself. Solarians we don't feel cold like this. Will's suit immediately began analyzing her vital signs. Your core temperature is fluctuating wildly. We need shelter. He spotted a natural cave formation nearby and guided her toward it, noting how she leaned into his support despite their height difference. Inside the cave, he activated his armor's emergency beacon and began setting up a temporary camp using supplies from his survival kit. Will, Aurelia said, her voice uncharacteristically uncertain. Something is happening to me. He turned to find her examining her own hand with fascination. Her orange skin seemed to pulse with an inner light, and his suit's sensors were going crazy, trying to interpret the readings. Talk to me, he said, moving closer. What are you feeling? Everything is, more. Colors are brighter. Sensations are stronger. She looked at him, those golden eyes now literally glowing. And there's something else, something growing. Will's suit beeped with an urgent notification. The biological scan results made his breath catch. Aurelia, according to these readings, you're pregnant, she finished, a mix of wonder and disbelief in her voice. With a hybrid child, impossible. Our species shouldn't be compatible. Clearly, someone forgot to tell our DNA that. He reached for her hand and she intertwined her fingers with his. Are you okay? A laugh bubbled up from her throat, genuine this time, not the controlled sound from before. Okay? I'm carrying what could be the first human Solarian child in history. My council will have collective apoplexy. The genetic purists will demand my abdication. And yet, she pulled him closer, her free hand tracing the contours of his armor. Yet I find myself fascinated by the possibilities. You're not angry. Angry, she smiled, showing slightly pointed teeth. My people have spent centuries believing we were superior to all other species. In one night, you've proven that humans are not only our equals, but potentially compatible mates. Do you know what this means? That I'm about to become the most wanted man in the Solarian Empire? That and so much more. Her expression turned predatory. It means evolution, change, a future neither of our species imagined possible. The cave suddenly felt much warmer. Will's suit helpfully informed him that Aurelia's pheromone levels were rising again. Your temperature's stabilizing, he noted, trying to maintain some professionalism. But we should probably run more tests, just to be safe. Indeed. She pulled him even closer. Very thorough tests. A distant explosion interrupted what promised to be an interesting scientific inquiry. Will's tactical display lit up with multiple contacts approaching the near position. We've got company, he announced. There's at least 3 ships, probably more hidden by the storm. Aurelia's expression hardened into the regal mask he'd first encountered. The council. They must have detected the outpost collapse. She straightened to her full height, every inch a queen despite her disheveled appearance. They cannot find us together, not yet. Not until we understand what this means. I'm not leaving you. You must. She cupped his face in her hands. My people will not harm their queen, but they would kill you on sight. I need time to prepare them for everything. Another explosion, closer this time. Searchlights began cutting through the storm. There's a human settlement 2 days' journey south. She continued quickly. Find your people. I will contact you when it's safe. How? She pressed something into his hand. A small crystal that pulsed with the same inner light as her skin. This will lead you back to me. Now go. Will hesitated for a moment, then pulled her down into a fierce kiss. This isn't goodbye. No, she agreed, pushing him toward the cave's rear exit. It's just the beginning. He activated his armor's stealth systems and slipped out into the storm just as the first search party reached the cave's entrance. The last thing he heard was Aurelia's voice, strong and commanding, berating her guards for taking so long to find their queen. As he made his way south through the blizzard, Will couldn't help grinning. The crystal pulsed warmly in his hand, and his suit's sensors continued monitoring Aurelia's vital signs through their newly established biological link. Well, he muttered to himself, that's one way to improve human-alien relations. 2 days of trudging through alien wilderness had done nothing to dampen Will's spirits. The crystal from Aurelia pulsed steadily against his chest, and his suit's biomonitors continued reporting her vital signs, both hers and their improbable child's. He crested a ridge and finally spotted the human settlement. New Darwin, according to his nav system. The collection of prefab buildings and makeshift defense towers looked like every other frontier colony he'd seen, except for one detail. They were preparing for war. Well, shit, he muttered, watching armored vehicles patrol the perimeter. His tactical display highlighted at least 3 planetary defense batteries being installed. The settlement's security picked him up before he made it halfway down the ridge. A squad of powered armor troops surrounded him, weapons raised. Commander Watson, a familiar voice called out. You're supposed to be dead. Colonel Sarah Hayes stepped forward, her weathered face breaking into a rare smile. The Hyperion reported your shuttle went down in Solarian territory 3 days ago. Good to see you too, Sarah. He gestured at the military buildup. Want to tell me what's got everyone so trigger-happy? Her expression darkened. Let's talk inside. You're not going to like this. The colony's command center was a hive of activity. Strategic displays showed troop movements, both human and Solarian, while analysts pored over intelligence reports. The Solarian Empire is in chaos, Hayes explained, pulling up classified footage. Their queen disappeared 3 days ago, right when you crashed. Their military's mobilizing, and our intel suggests a coup is brewing. Will kept his face carefully neutral. Any idea what happened to the queen? That's where it gets interesting. Hayes played a recording of a Solarian transmission. According to their own chatter, she's pregnant. The genetic purists are calling it an abomination. But get this, a growing faction of their military supports her. They're calling it the next step in evolution. You don't say. The real problem is this asshole. The display showed a towering Solarian male in ornate armor. He's High Commander Pyrax. He's convinced the Queen was corrupted by human spies, claims the pregnancy is proof of our biological warfare. Will whistled. That's quite a leap. He's using it to justify a preemptive strike against human settlements, hence our current preparations. Before Will could respond, alarms blared throughout the base. A junior officer burst into the room. Colonel, we're picking up multiple ships entering orbit. It's the Solarian Royal Guard. Hayes grabbed her command helmet. Battle stations, all units. Wait, Will held up his hands. Let me talk to them first. Are you insane, The command center's main display crackled to life, revealing Aurelia in full royal regalia. Her orange skin seemed to glow with an inner fire, and her presence commanded attention even through the screen. People of New Darwin, she announced, I am Queen Aurelia of the Solarian Empire. I come seeking asylum. The room erupted in chaos. Hayes barked orders while analysts scrambled to verify the transmission. Will simply smiled, feeling the crystal pulse in time with his heartbeat. Aurelia's eyes found him in the crowd. Commander Watson, I believe we have some matters to discuss, Your Majesty. He stepped forward, ignoring Hayes' attempted protest. I trust you're feeling well? Better by the day. Her smile held promises that made several officers blush. Though I find myself missing our scientific discussions. Before anyone could react to that loaded statement, proximity alarms screamed. New contacts appeared in orbit. Solarian warships bearing Pyrax's colors. My dear Queen, a new voice boomed across all frequencies. High Commander Pyrax's hologram materialized beside Aurelia's. How convenient to find you with the very humans who corrupted you. The only corruption here is your outdated thinking, Pyrax. Aurelia's voice could have frozen plasma. Stand down. I think not. His smile was predatory. The Council has spoken. You will be cleansed, the abomination removed, and the human vermin exterminated. Will stepped closer to the display. Hey, tall, dark, and fascist. That's my abomination you're talking about. Dead silence fell across all channels. Hayes buried her face in her hands. Pyrax looked like he'd been slapped with a fish. Aurelia's laughter, rich and genuine, broke the tension. Well, my love, I suppose that's one way to announce it. You! Pyrax's face contorted with rage. You dare to claim? Oh, I dare a lot of things, Will's grin was sharp enough to cut, including knocking up your queen. Turns out humans and Solarians aren't so different after all. This is impossible. Clearly not, Aurelia countered, one hand resting on her midsection. Our child represents everything you fear, Pyrax. Change, evolution, the end of your precious genetic purity. And do you know what else? Her golden eyes blazed. Half the fleet supports me. How many ships do you command again? As if on cue, new signatures appeared on tactical displays. The Solarian warships dropping out of hyperspace, bearing the Queen's colors. Last chance, Pyrax, Will called out. Stand down or find out exactly why humans have a reputation for being troublesome. The standoff lasted 3 heartbeats before Pyrax's ships began powering up weapons. So be it, Aurelia sighed. Commander Watson, would you care to help me deal with this rebellion? Will cracked his knuckles. Thought you'd never ask, Your Majesty. The battle above New Darwin unfolded like a deadly ballet. Pyrax's forces, though outnumbered, fought with the desperate fury of fanatics. But they hadn't counted on one crucial factor: human ingenuity combined with Solarian might. Will stood on the bridge of Aurelia's flagship, the Imperial Dawn, coordinating with both fleets. His combat suit interfaced seamlessly with Solarian systems, thanks to some creative programming and what he suspected was his newfound biological connection to their queen. Your tactics are unconventional, Aurelia observed from her command throne, watching him direct ships in patterns that made her tactician's head spin. Hey, humans excel at thinking outside the box, he replied, fingers dancing across holographic controls. Speaking of which, incoming. The Imperial Dawn shuddered as Pyrax's flagship launched a barrage of plasma torpedoes. Before the Solarian gunners could react, Will had already calculated an intercept solution that turned the enemy's own weapons against them. Impressive, Aurelia purred, then suddenly gasped, one hand pressing against her midsection. Will was at her side instantly, suit sensors scanning. What's wrong? The child... Her golden eyes widened with wonder. It's growing far faster than normal. The combination of our genetics seems to have triggered an accelerated development cycle. A medical officer rushed forward with scanning equipment, but Aurelia waved him away. I'm fine. The sensation is intense, but not uncomfortable. She caught Will's worried look and smiled. Your offspring is as impatient as you are, my love. Mike Queen, her chief advisor, interrupted. We're receiving transmissions from every major system in the Empire. News of your condition has spread. Good. Aurelia stood, her impressive height somehow even more commanding despite her visible pregnancy. Open a channel to all frequencies, both human and Solarian. The bridge crew scrambled to comply. Will moved to stand beside her, noting how she subtly leaned against him for support. People of the Solarian Empire, she began, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of authority, and honored representatives of humanity. You see before you what some call impossible, the union of our species, not through warfare or diplomacy, but through love. Prax's voice cut across the channels. Propaganda. The humans have corrupted our queen with their... Oh, shut up, Will interrupted. You're just jealous you didn't think of it first. Scattered laughter echoed across both fleets, breaking the tension. Even some of Pyrax's own ships seemed to waver in their formation. The old ways are changing, Aurelia continued. Evolution demands it. My child, our child, represents not the end of Solarian purity, but the beginning of something greater, a bridge between our peoples. She paused and grimacing slightly. Will's suit registered another spike in her biological readings. The pregnancy is progressing rapidly, the medical officer whispered. Hours instead of months. Then we'd better wrap this up quick, Will muttered, then addressed the fleet. Listen up. Your queen is about to give birth to the first human-Solarian hybrid in history. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me personally. And fair warning, I've got a pretty impressive track record with impossible situations. The crystal against his chest pulsed warmly, and he felt Aurelia's amusement through their link. Always so dramatic, she teased, then doubled over as another contraction hit. My queen! Several officers moved to help, but Will was faster, scooping her up despite their height difference. Medical bay, he ordered. Now! The battle! She protested. Will wait. He looked at her chief advisor. You have command. Don't let Pyrax escape, but try not to kill him. He might make a useful example later. The advisor bowed deeply. As you command, my lord. Will grinned as he carried Aurelia from the bridge. We'll figure out titles later. Right now, I've got a date with Destiny in the delivery room. You're enjoying this far too much, Aurelia grumbled against his neck. Says the woman who laughed at the idea of breeding with a human male. I'm not laughing now. No, he agreed, feeling the crystal pulse in time with both their heartbeats and something else. Something new. But I bet our kid will have a hell of a sense of humor. Behind them, the battle continued to unfold. But within the Imperial Dawn's medical bay, a different kind of history was about to be made. One that would change both species forever. The medical staff, a mix of human and Solarian experts hastily assembled, worked to prepare for something unprecedented. Their instruments registered energy readings off the scale, as if reality itself was holding its breath in anticipation. You know, Will said, holding Aurelia's hand as the medical team worked, this isn't exactly how I plan to meet your family. Her laughter turned into another groan as the accelerated pregnancy progressed. When this is over, I'm going to make you pay for every terrible joke. Promise? Her response was cut off by a new sensation that made every light in the medical bay flicker. The crystal between them pulsed with blinding intensity. Oh, Aurelia breathed, this is going to be interesting. The medical bay's pristine white walls thrummed with energy as Aurelia's labor progressed at its supernatural pace. Will hadn't left her side, his combat suit's sensors providing real-time data to the mixed team of human and Solarian doctors who watched in fascination as history unfolded before them. My queen! An aide burst through the doors. High Commander Pyrax has broken through the defensive line. He's boarding the ship. And Will's tactical display lit up with multiple hostile signatures moving through the Imperial Dawn. Of course he is, because this day wasn't exciting enough. Aurelia grabbed his arm with strength that would have crushed unarmored bones. Go, stop him, protect our child. I'm not leaving you. You're not? She pressed the pulsing crystal into his hand. We're connected now, remember? Besides, ... Her golden eyes flickered with amusement, despite her discomfort. I'd rather like to see you put that human ingenuity to work against that pompous ass. The ship shuddered from internal explosions. Will's display showed Pyrax's forces converging on their position. "Doctor," he addressed the chief medical officer. "How long?" "Minutes at most. The energy readings are off the charts." Will kissed Aurelia deeply, then stood. "Hold that thought, Your Majesty. I've got a quick errand to run." "Try not to damage my ship too badly," she called after him. "No promises." The corridor outside medical was already a battlefield. Will sealed the doors behind him and activated his suit's full combat protocols. The crystal hummed against his chest, somehow amplifying his neural connection to the armor. "Attention all hand," he broadcast shipwide. "This is Commander Watson. We've got party crashers trying to ruin a very special delivery. Let's show them some human hospitality." The response was immediate. Both human and Solarian crew members rallied, coordinating their efforts through his tactical network. Pyrax forces found themselves facing an unprecedented combination of human guerrilla tactics and Solarian martial prowess. "Impressive," Pyrax's voice boomed through the ship. "But futile. The abomination must not be born." "You know," Will replied while setting up improvised explosive charges, "for someone so obsessed with genetic purity, you sure talk a lot about my kid. Feeling inadequate?" The taunt had its intended effect. Pyrax troops broke formation, charging forward recklessly, straight into Will's trap. The explosions weren't meant to kill, just to drive them exactly where he wanted them. Through it all, the crystal pulsed stronger, and Will felt Aurelia's presence in his mind growing more intense. Something was building, like static before a lightning strike. "My lord," a Solarian officer called out. And wasn't that still weird to hear? "High Commander Pyrax is approaching the medical bay from the secondary access shaft." "Perfect," Will grinned. "That's exactly where I want him." He reached the medical bay's rear entrance just as Pyrax burst through, the massive Solarian commander resplendent in his ceremonial battle armor. "Stand aside, human," Pyrax growled. "This is beyond you." "Actually," Will drawled, "I think this is exactly where I'm supposed to be." "Want to know why?" "Your primitive attempts at—" "Because," Will continued, noting how the crystal's pulse had synchronized with the ship's power fluctuations, "my kid's about to make one hell of an entrance." The medical bay doors burst open in a flash of blinding light. Energy cascaded through the corridor like liquid starfire, and in its wake, reality seemed to bend. Will felt it first through his link with Aurelia, a new consciousness, powerful and pristine, combining the best of both species. The crystal shattered, its energy merging with the phenomenon. When the light faded, Pyrax stood frozen, his armor systems completely dead. Behind Will, cradled in Aurelia's arms, their child glowed with an inner light that put the stars to shame. "Well," Will said into the stunned silence, "that's definitely got my hair." The baby, a perfect blend of human and Solarian features, opened eyes that shifted between deep blue and molten gold. Every electronic device in the ship responded to its mere presence, systems upgrading and evolving in real time. "Impossible," Pyrax whispered. "You keep using that word," Aurelia said, her voice tired but triumphant. "I don't think it means what you think it means." The ship's communications suddenly activated, broadcasting across all frequencies without any input from the crew. Images of the child appeared on every screen, its hybrid nature impossible to deny or ignore. The next step, Will realize. Not just for our species, but for everything. Aurelia nodded. "Evolution demands change, Pyrax. You can either adapt or become extinct." The fallen commander looked between the child, its parents, and his own powerless armor. Finally, he dropped to one knee. "My queen," he said, voice rough with emotion. I was wrong." "Yes," she agreed. "You were. But perhaps that's the point. We were all wrong, thinking our species had reached their peak separately. It took human audacity and Solarian pride to show us a better way." Will moved to her side, marveling at their child's perfect features. "So, about those titles we were discussing earlier." "Don't push your luck, Commander." "Yes, Your Majesty," he grinned. "Though I think we're a bit beyond formal titles now." The baby made a sound that might have been a laugh, and every light in the ship pulsed in response. "You know," and Will added, "we still need to name the little reality warper." Aurelia's expression softened as she looked at their child. "In Solarian tradition, children of greatness are named for the moment of their birth." "Yeah? And what would you call this moment?" She smiled. "The beginning." 3 months after the birth of their child, Will found himself adjusting his formal diplomatic attire in the mirror of their private chambers aboard the Imperial Dawn. The suit, specially designed to complement Solarian aesthetic while maintaining human military dignity, still felt strange compared to his combat armor. Having trouble with the ceremonial collar, my love? Aurelia's amused voice came from behind him. She stood in the doorway, resplendent in her royal regalia, their child cradled in one arm. You try fastening these clasps when they're designed for 8-foot-tall aliens, he grumbled good-naturedly. She glided forward, expertly adjusting his collar with her free hand. Such complaints from the man who had no trouble figuring out other aspects of Solarian anatomy. Ha, that was different. He grinned up at her. I was highly motivated. Their child, officially named Aurora Dawn but nicknamed Rory by the human crew, giggled and every electronic device in the room flickered in response. At 3 months old, she already showed the best traits of both species. Aurelia's striking orange skin and flowing hair combined with Will's blue eyes and determined chin. Her height was advancing faster than a human child's, but not quite at Solarian rates. The diplomatic summit starts in an hour, Aurelia reminded him. Are you ready to scandalize the conservative factions again? Me? You're the one who told the Solarian High Council that human males are surprisingly adaptable. He waggled his eyebrows, while looking directly at your former suitors. She laughed, the sound still sending shivers down his spine. I was merely stating facts. Besides, the number of human Solarian coupling requests has tripled since then. Yeah, about that. Will took Rory from her arms, marveling at how their daughter immediately began interfacing with his suit systems. Did you really have to tell the entire Imperial Court about my impressive stamina? Would you prefer I lied? She bent down to kiss him, making the height difference particularly obvious. Besides, it's important for our people to understand the benefits of genetic diversity. A diplomatic aide's voice came through the intercom, carefully avoiding interrupting in person. They learned that lesson after walking in on one too many diplomatic discussions between the royal couple. My queen, my lord, the delegates are arriving. Time to face the music. Will handed Rory back to Aurelia. Ready to show the galaxy what the future looks like? With you? Always. The Grand Diplomatic Chamber of the Imperial Dawn had been modified to accommodate both human and Solarian delegations. The sight of the mixed crew working seamlessly together still drew amazed stares from newcomers. As they entered, Will noticed several things at once. The appreciative glances from both human and Solarian women, the barely concealed envy from various male dignitaries, and the way Pyrax, now their strongest supporter, stood proudly at attention. Representatives of Earth and the Solarian Empire, Aurelia's voice carried effortlessly through the chamber. We gather today to formalize the alliance between our peoples. An alliance built on more than just politics, Will added, with a smirk that made several Solarian elders shift uncomfortably. Indeed, Aurelia's golden eyes sparkled with mischief. As I'm sure many of you have heard, the compatibility between our species has proven remarkable. A ripple of charged murmurs went through the crowd. In the 3 months since Rory's birth, dozens of human-Solarian relationships had blossomed, each producing uniquely gifted offspring. The conservative factions couldn't deny the benefits: enhanced technological interface abilities, accelerated development, and unprecedented genetic stability. The old jokes about human males being too small are officially retired, one particularly bold Solarian noble announced, drawing knowing laughs from the crowd. Will raised an eyebrow at Aurelia. Should I be concerned about how many of your people can personally verify that? Jealous, my love. Of them? Never. His grin turned wicked. They're not the ones who made the Queen of the Solarian Empire scream my name in 3 different languages. The chamber erupted in gasps, laughs, and more than a few interested murmurs. Rory chose that moment to demonstrate her powers by creating a holographic display of her parents' first meeting, thankfully editing out the more private moments. As you can see, Aurelia recovered smoothly, our daughter has her father's talent for dramatic timing. The diplomatic discussions that followed were unlike any in galactic history. Traditional boundaries of propriety were repeatedly shattered as both species embraced their new reality. The sight of their hybrid child casually manipulating advanced technology while alternating between human lullabies and Solarian war chants became a powerful symbol of their unified future. You know, Will whispered to Aurelia during a brief recess, when I crashed on your planet, I didn't expect to end up changing the course of 2 civilizations. No, She traced a finger down his chest, making his formal attire suddenly feel too warm. What did you expect? Honestly, I was just hoping to survive the winter. And instead, you survived me. Her smile turned predatory. Though the night is still young, my bold human. Pyrax chose that moment to approach with several urgent documents requiring their attention. He stopped short at their intimate pose. My queen, my lord, perhaps I should return later? Nonsense. Aurelia straightened to her full height, though her hand remained possessively on Will's shoulder. We were just discussing human-Solarian relations. Very thoroughly, Will added helpfully. Pyrax's expression suggested he deeply regretted his past opposition to their union, if only because he now had to regularly witness their shameless flirtation. The Genetic Council has submitted their latest findings, he reported, steadfastly professional. It seems the success rate of human-Solarian pairings increases with emotional compatibility. Is that the scientific term for it? Will asked innocently. I believe the human phrase asexual chemistry, Aurelia supplied, making Pyrax visibly struggle to maintain his composure. Rory burbled happily in her mother's arms, creating a small light show that drew everyone's attention. The child's powers grew daily, along with her personality, a perfect blend of human adaptability and Solarian pride. To think, Aurelia mused, all of this because you crashed on my planet. Best crash landing ever. Will wrapped an arm around her waist, or as high as he could reach. Though I still say you were checking me out before you decided to take me prisoner. I was assessing a potential threat. Is that what they're calling it now? Their playful banter was interrupted by the arrival of more diplomats, eager to discuss the possibility of expanding human-Solarian relations to their own systems. The future stretched before them, bright with possibility and spiced with the kind of chemistry that had already changed the galaxy once. And in the midst of it all, their daughter continued to grow, a living testament to what could happen when someone dared to laugh at impossible things.